Why do you want to help customers buy Savvy? Like, what do you want for them? We do love Lisa.
Why? Well, I mentioned this when we were in Mexico, how when I started to share, I in my mind, it was more about like, okay, you gotta get customers to be in the customer pool. But once I started touching the hearts of a lot of women, and women were giving me feedback about how they were feeling, then it just motivated me more. So when I do meet in women online, I always ask if they're comfortable sharing. Once we get to this point, there's a lot more to get to this point, but I always ask if they're comfortable sharing, what size they are, and so I could help them. And I always say, like, awesome, like, no matter what size they are, I'm like, awesome. I'm like, I've helped so many women just like you. And so I usually have, like, images and things in my arsenal to be able to share. And then I always say, because I'm pretty average, I'm not in the middle. And so they don't know me, and so I will say, I'm a 38D, and I wear extra large, top, and I'm so I'm like middle, and so I think that helps.
That helps for them to know that, you're not like, just trying to be like a model. You're just like, hey, this is me, and this is what I love about the clothing.
Yeah, and I always bring it back to I've gotten so much great feedback from my customers, and just letting them know that there are so many people out there like you, and who've shared that how good they feel.
I love that. I love that you have felt the difference and you help people to feel the difference. And are these people you know, or are they? Okay, this is what we want to talk about. So you're finding customers that you don't know, they don't know you, you guys don't have a connection. It's not like you went to high school with them and they're like your childhood best friend, right? Because we all know we can share with those people. So can you give us some tips on how do you find those people?
Sure. So I have some new ways. I won't share all the other ways I've shared because that's online on the brand partner page. There's a lot of tips on there from a call I did. But I'm going to share a story on the airplane. And you talk about the difference of it's always been hard for me to be a listener. And so I've had to learn to be a good listener. So I was on one long flight with a gal and I said, is this your final destination coming here? And she started talking about why she was coming, and she said she told me about a 27-year-old, and then somehow in our conversation she talked about having a 6-year-old. And then it turned in she had 11 kids. And in my mind I'm like, do not ask her any of those questions that everybody would ask her. In my mind, don't ask her if they're all her own or anything. So you figure. So I let her talk and talk and talk, and I kept asking questions. And somehow we got talking about how I said, do you do anything else at home, or you home with the kids? And
how do you stay sane? Is that what you're trying to ask her?
And she said, I've been trying to find something to do from home. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things you could do from home. You could go work for Delta. They need help. And I'm phone calls for an hour and a half with them. And then I'm thinking, oh wait, I gotta talk about Savvy. But it was all about her the whole time. Oh, and then before we even got to talking about clothes, she goes, I love shopping so much for clothes. And I'm like, okay. So that was a really, really long conversation. The last plane here, I said nothing next to we were in the front row next to the girl, and we stood up and we were waiting to get off the plane, and we had not even a 2-minute conversation from there to the baggage claim. And we just got to, I pretty much said, is this your final destination or whatever, what are you doing here? And I said, have you ever heard of Savvy? And she said no, and she lives a little distance from here. She shared with me something she was super proud of, being a CEO of this animal humane, some big thing here, and won this big award. I'm like, I won a big award too, and I haven't told anybody about it online. And then she sent me a friend request, and we connected in 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. I mean, you felt it, and yeah.
And so you make connections.
Yeah.
You make connections. And what I love about this is, do you ever ask people questions and you listen? And as you're sitting there listening, you're like, it kind of sounds like they're asking for Savvy. Here she is I wish I had something to do at home. I love online shopping. Were you right? They will literally, left to their own devices, they will talk themselves into Savvy if you just keep asking questions. Because what woman doesn't love to shop, and what woman doesn't love clothing, what woman doesn't love a cool community and to feel empowered and all the things.
Yes.
Okay, so these are two recent
Yes.
connections. And yesterday, like really
Yes.
recent. Now, do they know about Savvy yet? Like, what's your next step with them?
Well, yeah, so I had already.
There's that one woman,
Yes,
right?
we
Like,
connected, and that's the purpose, to have a conversation, and I haven't had more time.
well, what would you do? Like, what would you?
We will,
like,
because
give me.
I want to know more about them.
Okay, you want to know more about them. So I guess what I'm pulling out of you or hearing you share is like the nugget, right? And the nugget that I'm getting from you right now is you want to have a connection with them. Why?
Yes. Well, and this one gal, the last gal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my daughter, you're just like my daughter. I'm like, we have so much in common. And then she touched me, and it was the craziest connection. So yeah, those are just, it's connecting, listening. It's not about, just a sale. It's how people feel. Yeah. I have something else I've been doing a little bit different, because I picked up and saw somebody else do this. So I've been in some vendor groups and had really good success in these groups. And I picked up on somebody else doing this. And so what I did is consider who your audience is and what they really want to see. So in these groups, I list A through H and say, we are more than just leggings. And I ask what the group wants to see. And so A might be sweaters, crews, and hoodies. B might be wraps, kimonos, whatever. Like, it's almost never the leggings and the sports bras. And so if you are attentive to what your group wants, and then that's how I create all my posts. And so if you were to look at my back office, you might see like, Lisa's been selling a lot of coats lately, or like the sweatshirts. And it's because that's what my audience wants to see.
So your audience is a Facebook group that you have for your customers?
No, it's a vendor group. It's an event. Like, I'm connected with this professor who has very structured events. Like, I don't even know how many 20K people in her group, and creates these events. Very, very structured. They work very well, and you create a lot of connection. Even if you didn't have a great deal of sales, you make like 20, 30 connections in that group.
Amazing.
But yeah, ask them what they want to see.
I love that. So you care about the person, you're connecting with the person, and then rather than telling, you're asking, very much like Steven shared this morning, right? Needs-based. So you're asking, and then when they tell you what they want, then you're giving them what they want. Sounds pretty simple to me.
I was surprised. I didn't really want to like what they want to see. So I'm like, okay, you want to see crews and hoodies?
You show it to them.
Then I just tell them, of course, I always like how it makes you feel. I always bring the feeling into my posts and the clothes. And,
I love that.
And I always try to represent all types.
All types.
And I got
We're not one size fits all,
No.
right?